there has to be mechanisms or strategies to be put in place. And we need to understand what exactly happened to people when they've smoked. You can get a seed from the sesheho, and then you try and come and cultivate it in Mankwen. And the plant is different. It's not the same. And remember, for a very long time, these companies that make cigarettes, they were denying that nicotine causes cancer.
In our last interview, Prof, we spoke about the history and the origins of cannabis and some of its uses. Today, what we can look at will include things such as harm reduction, and then we can also touch on what has happened recently with regard to the cannabis for private use bill that the president recently signed into law. So without any further ado, let's get to look at what happened on the eve of elections on the 28th of May 2024 when the president signed into law the cannabis bill.
I like the way you are emphasizing on the eve of the elections, as if you're suggesting that the president signed that so that he can get the votes.
That's
that's what people think. But well, it's but you can't rule that from politics, But anyway, on a serious note, yes, it's a very important bill in the sense that it has taken a long time, since 2018. You remember, the constitutional ruling for people to come. I think, to be honest with you, from what I understand with what's been happening all over the world regarding cannabis, I think someone within the presidency, or someone who advises the government, has been following up international developments. For example, when you look at the bill, the way it is structured, or rather the act now is the way it is structured, it is very similar to the German bill that they are actually also debating on right now, and it is also very similar to, I think, to some extent, Switzerland. And also, one can say it's also very similar to what is happening in the United States, not at the federal level, but among certain states like California and so forth. So I think somebody has been following, some of these developments. So basically, what it then says is that you can use cannabis, right? You can use the plant, right, for recreational purposes, but as long as you do it in privacy. That's a joke. Really, honestly, that is a joke. How do you police that? Because someone can just roll his cigarette, cannabis cigarette, and decides to go to the shop, and he starts smoking it while on his way to the shop. And I can tell you right now, you can smell it these days. You can smell cannabis anywhere now these days on the street.
Yeah,
but what worries a lot of people is things like in Germany, for example. I don't know what was the result yesterday, right? They were discussing the driving issue, driving under the influence. How that is going to be measured? Of course, the Germans have got the technology to be able to pick up whether somebody has been smoking. But remember, you can still have the metabolites of the chemical substance 7 days after smoking. So so how then it's a little bit different from alcohol, where you can use the breathalyzer and whatnot. So a person can be picked up that they smoke, even if the last time they smoked was 7 days ago. So the technology is still evolving. Okay, that's one of the things that's in the bill. But what's also important in the bill is the protection of children. But how is that going to be to be done? The only way that it can be done is by educating the general public. It's just like cigarettes, that you can't smoke a cigarette in the presence of kids because there's secondary smoking and all that. So basically, I think the bill, the act rather, now it's act, the law, is made for people to protect, it's for public health and so forth. But it can always be revisited and be sharpened and so forth and so on. It's not cast, well, a law is not cast in concrete. People can always come back and talk about it and see the best way of protecting the general public, just like they did with alcohol, mind you.
Yes.
Just like they did with nicotine. So, things can change. But I suppose for a lot of people who've been using cannabis illegally are now comfortable that they can continue to change their consciousness. Remember, we're talking about consciousness. There's no way you can change. You can stop somebody who wants to change their consciousness as a result of taking some chemical substance. Yeah.
I like how you touch on the fact that the children have also been protected in this act. Because looking at alcohol, it is also used to make some of the medication that are prescribed to children.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
So this goes back to what you say about the need to revisit this act, so that cannabis can also be, because how can you stop someone to use it as medication?
Exactly.
There's no way to police that.
There's no way to police that, no.
Yeah.
So then linking it up, you then link it up with harm reduction. That's what it means. Okay, when you say harm reduction, we have to define what exactly do we mean by harm reduction, because it can mean a lot of things to different people. We're talking about a harm reduction in as far as the person who's using cannabis, because as you know, I have talked to people who smoke cannabis, and I asked them, do they still mix tobacco with cannabis? Because remember, you want the cigarette to continue to be lit. And some people mix it with tobacco or take tobacco from the cigarette, because the cigarette has got chemicals that maintain, will continue to have it lit. So some people want to, you don't want to be striking a match all the time and lighting your cannabis cigarette. So some people mix it with tobacco, and we know tobacco is addictive. Number one. And the second thing is you are smoking, and that's hazardous to your lungs. That can cause medical problems. So that's why companies now have come up with some gadgets, very expensive gadgets, that you vape, and they tell you that it's nicotine. Yes, e-cigarettes. You don't have to smoke. The stuff that used to be in the cigarettes before, but it's very expensive. So that's harm reduction in as far as an individual is concerned. The second aspect of harm reduction is you change your consciousness, and you may become antisocial. There are some people who after smoking, just like after drinking, and even after smoking, there's certain people who behave in a certain way. So there has to be mechanisms or strategies to be put in place, and we need to understand what exactly happened to people when they've smoked marijuana, because there is not much that is known, because the THC mind you, there's different types of THCs, in cannabis. There's about 6. It's 6 types. And the latest was discovered in 2019. And the THC affects people differently. So we're talking about, harm reduction by advising people that be careful. Because you see, it depends on where you've grown it. Now people are allowed to grow it around their houses and all that stuff. So we don't know what kind of THC will be in that plant that is grown in different plants, in different different parts of the household, of the yard.
Yes.
That's harm reduction. So you need to be very careful, because THC affects people differently, right? And then we don't know, how are you going to control people from using pesticides? Somebody may just find that his cannabis is being attacked by certain type of aphids, and so he then says, no, well, why can't I use the same pesticides that I use for my vegetables? So there's so many issues that still need to be looked at in terms of harm reduction, from a health point of view, from protecting children point of view, from the use of pesticides and all that, and one could go on and on and on, just like harm reduction when it comes to alcohol. Yeah, there's so many issues, because remember, we are talking about something that changes the way you think.
Consciousness.
Yes, we're talking about something that changes the way you think. There are some people who become very violent.
And there's also issues I've heard of, marijuana-induced psychosis.
Exactly. Because there's the genetics of it. Like what we've just said, the genetics of an individual. There are certain people who are prone to be psychotic, right? So how do we know that when they smoke THC, it triggers that psychosis? Of course, there have been studies that now people are now coming up with all sorts of studies that debunk that sort of thing. But again, you don't know who really, how reliable is that kind of information, because as you know, big companies are into it, big time. Those companies that used to make cigarettes are also into cannabis.
They're venturing off.
Exactly. So a company comes to me, for example, and says, listen, why don't you look at the effects of cannabis, and we give you all the money for your research and all that. I can't say no, can I? I can't say no, I'll do it. But then they would then say, well, listen, the kind of information that you generate is ours. You can't publish it. So that's what's happening out there.
And this, when you talk about big companies, it goes back to those different kinds of THCs that you mentioned.
Yes.
The 6 types that you say are there.
Mm-hmm.
And are they all natural?
No, some are not natural.
They are synthetic.
About 3 are about synthetic.
Well, they are lab created.
The lab created. But the one I'm telling you, THCP, that is natural. And it was only discovered in 2019. And is more potent than THC9.
The 9 is...
The 9 is the regular one that you find in the plant. That's the one that everybody is familiar with. THC9.
9.
Yeah, but there's also THC8, which can be synthesized in the lab. But now there is THCP, which is more potent than... These guys were looking at the different varieties of cannabis, and they stumbled upon a different type of THC. So, people talk about THC. So I thought I would just mention that there are different types of THCs.
It's good that you mentioned that, Prof.
Yes.
It's very good, because seeing there being different kinds of THCs, there are a lot of people, for example, those on the black market, they want the kind of cannabis that they sell to people to be
more potent.
Yeah,
they claim to be their product is more potent.
Yes. Prof.
Like what they talk about, the Swazi gold and Malawi gold and all that. Yes, I understand. Yes.
So that goes back to what you say about there being guidelines from the government side that there needs to be more control, so that they don't use other foreign substances to try and induce that potency that may be harmful to the people's health.
Yes, but then you see, it's difficult for now. It is very difficult, because I can tell you that now in terms of the analysis of saying, what kind of THC is that one is in there, or what THC is somebody been used using, say for example, they become psychotic, and then somebody picks up the kind of cigarette that they were smoking. The analysis, the equipment that's there, I mean, it's the chemical analysts, or phytochemists don't agree on the best analytical method right now. You can get one cigarette that took, the cannabis cigarette, and you send it to lab A, and you send it to lab B, and then send it to lab C. They will all come up with different results. So right now, it's in terms of analysis, well, it's not surprising, because we were talking about something that's been illegal for a long time.
Yes.
So people couldn't wake up, work up and come up with a proper analysis and agree that this is the best. Right now, for example, there's about 10 laboratories that do that.
In the country.
In the country, yeah.
So does this mean the government kind of ignorant on their part that they legalized a substance that they did not make thorough investigations into, to the implications it can cause health-wise and otherwise?
Yeah, but it's not that they were ignorant, because remember, this was a constitutional ruling that the government had to come up with something. So we're talking about almost how many years? 3, 4 years?
Yeah,
3, 4 years. So the pressure was on, and there are all those people that have been using cannabis illegally. So you never know, where the pressure could have come from. But these are now the issues that have to be looked at and be dealt with as we move. Because honestly, this is life. The laws are made for the people, and it's up to the people to then say, well, listen, the best way of making sure things are done properly is to follow this particular route and so forth. Yeah.
But by the fact that the government signed this bill into law without providing any sort of guidelines to the public that this is the best way to use this plant, if you will. That's life. Yeah, okay, that's life. It was passed by the parliamentarians that we are supposed to have chosen. So one hopes they would have consulted, isn't it, the general public, that this is it, which is what happened actually, But what you need to understand, we're talking about the science of this particular plant, which a lot of people don't have. So they couldn't bring it forward and say, well, listen, this is what needs to be done. The science of the plant, people are still at 6s and 7s, because remember, it was an illegal, and no one could do any studies on it. And then we're also talking about the science of making law. Okay, the science of making law. Whether some people really understand it, that's another matter. Yeah, so there is science everywhere. So it's not a question of saying the government as such. No. It's not the government, because it's a law that was passed by our representatives in Parliament. So this goes to say that what you are saying, Prof, basically is that the people who are going to use these substances, they ought to be responsible for their own part.
Yes, exactly. If you're growing it around your homestead, it's important that you're doing it safely. You're not using a pesticide. It is also important to have an idea of what kind of variety you're cultivating around your homestead. Remember, you can get a seed. You can get a seed from the Sesheho, and then you try and come and cultivate it in Mankwen. And the plant is different. It's not the same. So now we're talking
about soil.
Because of the soil, because of a lot of other things.
The environment.
The environment. So those are some of these. When we talk about the science, we're now talking about things like botany. We're now talking about agronomy and so forth. So it's. Remember last time I said it was a plant that can grow anywhere in the world.
Yes.
except the Arctic and the Antarctic.
That's very interesting, Prof. So, what are some of the things that people can do? I hear you are saying that they should look at maybe the kind of pesticides that they use.
No, they mustn't. They mustn't use pesticides.
They mustn't use.
They must not use pesticides.
Or pesticides.
Not at all.
Okay.
That's a no. You can't use pesticide when you're cultivating it around your house.
What then, Prof, should people use in order to combat some of those things that the pesticides are used for on plants?
On plants. You see, this plant protects itself from a lot of pests, but there are certain pests, definitely, that come and attack it. From the flower, the leaves, the stem, and the roots. Take it out and throw it away instead of using a pesticide. It's important. Don't use a pesticide, because at the end of the day, if you use that pesticide, you don't know where it is going to be accumulated. So you start smoking it, because for now a lot of people smoke. So you don't want to be smoking pesticide residues in the plant. That is critical. No matter how desperate you are as a marijuana smoker, if you see pests, go for organic pesticides. They are there. Okay? Organic ones.
Only.
They're those pesticides, natural, organic pesticides. They are there. And so we're saying it is an opportunity for those people who can produce those organic pesticides that are safe to be used on the plant, but not necessarily on you. You see what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's something that people have to think about. It's one thing just growing and cultivating it around your house and smoking it. It's another to make sure that you're using it safely.
Yeah. That's very.
So those are the issues that really need to be looked at.
That's true, Prof. I hear you.
Yeah.
So, Prof, I forgot the question already.
Okay, sorry, I diverted.
No,
digressed.
Prof. We need this information.
Yes.
So, looking at some of you speak about those people that are producers of organic pesticides, that they should take advantage of this law and produce.
Yes, and produce more organic pesticides that are good for the plant. Yes, go ahead.
This reminds me of this question I forgot.
Yeah.
So, this is one of the advantages that people can take with regard to this new law that has been signed.
Right.
So, what are some of the advantages that we can take or we can see from going forward from this
the law?
law?
Right. If it was possible, for now it's not possible. But if it was possible, you know what people could do? They would form clubs. Okay? Cannabis social clubs, where people get together and talk about their experiences with the plant that they're growing around their houses and so forth, right? And then out of those clubs, people would then say, "But listen, I think mine is more potent, for example. Mine is more potent." And then somebody would say, "But yeah, okay, but where do you grow it?" And people, it's part of a club to come and see, right? They understand the soil, they understand everything and so forth, okay? And then there is absolutely nothing wrong. People would then say, "But listen, this is what we saw around this particular homestead. Why don't we have a farm? Why don't we have a farm where we now start cultivating it?"
But legally speaking...
No. Wait a minute.
Okay,
this is a club that has been allowed, right? But in the process of setting up a club, you have your intentions. But there's nothing wrong in approaching the powers that be and say, "Listen, we have a club and we have found that, yes, among ourselves, now there is a particular plant which grows at a particular place, and it's got these seeds and so forth. There's absolutely nothing wrong in saying, well, listen, we want to grow it commercially. And then tobacco was a wild plant, mind you. Tobacco was a wild plant. And people continue to do research on tobacco in terms of the nicotine. You hear the different types of tobacco, the Virginia tobacco, Turkish tobacco, and all that. Yes, that's how people develop. So that's why I was saying, no, the law is not cast in concrete. Now you say, we now have our social clubs. This is our experience. We want to turn what we have shared as a part of a club into a commercial venture.
So what the law says for now is a milestone.
Yes.
It's not just...
but of course, it's a milestone. It's a milestone because there are benefits that are going to come out from this. Because, for example, people were not allowed to do any research on cannabis before. Right now, there's nothing to stop anyone to say, anyone who is growing cannabis around their homestead, right? Can you come and share your experience with the cannabis that you are using around your house? And you get people to come and talk. That's simple social scientific research, right? And then from there, information can then be gathered and shared among people. So a long time ago, people couldn't do any research. So that the law allows that now. There's nothing to stop you. Because you can argue and say, well, listen, the purpose of my doing this kind of research is to find out what people's experience of cultivating cannabis around their homestead is, in order to come up with more arguments to change certain aspects of the law. And that's how the law is made. It's evidence-based. So there are advantages. There are advantages. And then somebody can then say, I would also want to understand, a psychologist can say, well, I want to understand, how your experience is. And how often do you smoke? And when, does it affect the way you function in the home? Who knows? It could also contribute to information on gender-based violence. Does cannabis really contribute to gender-based violence?
If so, how?
If so, how? And how often is this person smoking? And how long have they been smoking? And that sort of thing. No, people should take advantage of that. That is the science. We need the evidence in order to change the law, either restrict and then come up with regulations, smart regulations regarding cannabis. When I say smart regulations, I'm talking about flexible regulations, innovative regulations, right? That then encourage to do certain things proper. If we could have come up with regulations for alcohol, which is a psychotropic drug. If we came up with tobacco, nicotine, which is also psychotropic, why can't we come up with cannabis?
And it's very interesting that you mentioned the issue at the psychologist about them being able to study about the plant and how it affects the mind. So that couldn't be done before.
No, it couldn't be done. It couldn't be done before. And I'll tell you, until 2021, no one could do any research on cannabis in the United States unless you got the plant from the University of Mississippi.
We touch on that.
Yes, last time, exactly. And then the federal, there had to be a federal law now in the United States to allow people to do research on cannabis. You can do research with cannabis where it doesn't matter where you get it. Right? But unfortunately, with us, we tend to follow. You know, we tend to follow what is done somewhere else.
We are not setting.
We're not setting our own. We don't allow our own people to come up with ideas in terms of how things should be done, which is really unfortunate. That colonial mentality is still there. Yeah.
That's very unfortunate.
Yeah, it's very unfortunate. It's as if people in our country don't think.
They just accept what.
Yeah, just accept. You know, and don't forget, this law has opened up business for big industry. It has opened up the business. It has opened up the business for big industry. If they're going to come up with a cigarette, and already, like I've told you, they've come up with a gadget. They've come up with a gadget that can be used for cannabis flowers. Yes. They've come up with a gadget.
For cannabis flowers?
Yes. People like to smoke cannabis, the flower, isn't it? That's where most of the THC is.
Yeah.
Now, instead of smoking it,
you vape.
You vape. There's a gadget now. It was developed in Israel.
To me, Prof, it sounds like it's like an uncharted field. It's like a gold mine that's waiting to be explored.
Of course, it is, because remember, we're talking about we're talking about the need to change your consciousness. Right? And here is a substance now that's going to be allowed for anyone to change their consciousness, just like they did with nicotine. And remember, for a very long time, these companies that make cigarettes, they were denying that nicotine causes cancer. Until later on.
They couldn't even deny it.
They couldn't deny it. Right? So, I mean, it's an opportunity. And remember, as you know, money was being made through the legal route of cannabis. Lots of money. Lots of money was being made. I'm telling you, untaxed. And those guys, I can tell you, are unhappy.
Right now.
Right now, they are unhappy. Right? Because someone is going to take advantage of making sure that that need to change your consciousness has now been legalized.
But it sounds to me that this law gives an advantage to the big business.
Of course.
To make money out of cannabis. But for the normal people,
of course,
they are only reserved to only smoke it in the privacy of their own
homes, which is unfortunate. No, that's where we then need agricultural economists, right? Sitting together with the agronomists, sitting together with people who understand plant genetics and say, right, listen, how can we then also have industries established in our own countries that make this substance that a lot of people need? Not want, but need. Isn't it that a lot of people would brew beer? We've got our own. Exactly. But can it beat SAB Miller? They can't.
Big business.
It's big business. But I mean, we used to make our own compote.
And the thing about cannabis is that it is not only, how can I put this? It's not only reserved for the flowers or smoking.
No.
And medicine. There's also the oil.
Now we are talking about the plant. Now you're talking about the plant itself, right? Earlier, we all along we've just been talking about recreational use.
Yes.
But you're forgetting that this plant, and mind you, it's hemp. People tend to want to separate hemp and cannabis, say hemp and cannabis and so forth. But it is the same plant, right? It depends on the amount of THC inside the plant. If it has got certain amount of THC, it becomes cannabis. It becomes a drug, which is not allowed. But if it has got less THC, but the question is, like I've said earlier, which THC are we talking about? Okay, now let's go back to this plant. It's a plant that can be whose fiber can be used for clothes, whose fiber can be used to make building material, hempcrete, the fiber, and whose stem can be used for biofuel, right? Whose flower has got seeds from which oil can be extracted. And this oil can then be used for cosmetics. This oil can also be used for cooking. Right? And one could go on and on. This plant has got, listen carefully, this plant has got 25,000 applications. 25,000 applications.
Wow.
Right? So it's a plant that you see, when you cultivate your own around your house, and then you see all of a sudden, damn, it has turned into a big tree. And that's gold itself. You take it up and you go and show it to someone else and say, well, listen, I had this seed, and my cannabis that I used to smoke has turned into a tree. Would you like to investigate what has happened here? So in 25,000 applications.
So the whole plant has utility. There's nothing to waste.
To waste. And the same plant can be used by mining companies to go and grow it, to go and cultivate it where the mining tailings in order to remediate the soil.
Is that true?
Yes. To make the soil back to normal. Right? And then the plant can accumulate some of whatever mineral that was going to the tailings, the waste site, and accumulate it, and then you can extract the mineral in the plant itself. That's phytomining. Okay? And people who use oil today, the companies that use oil today for energy, they can use hemp. Okay? Because it's a plant that grows quickly. 9 months you're harvesting. They can, they can paper, cardboard, packaging. And this is going to surprise you. Plastic. For years. For bodies that are for the body of a car. And are you familiar with motorbikes?
Motorbikes.
Yes, Harley Davidson. Harley Davidson, today as we speak, it has got parts made from hemp, plastic. Harley Davidson. And guess who it has gone into partnership with to make that plastic that is made from hemp? Philip Morris.
Who is Philip Morris?
The company that makes Marlboro.
Oh, the cigarette company.
Exactly.
Wow.
So one could go on and on and on. Hemp can replace cotton for fiber. It can replace cotton for food, nutrition. Because remember, we can make oil from cotton. From the cotton seeds and whatnot. All that can be replaced by hemp. We're talking about 25,000 applications on this plant. And unfortunately, it can be smoked. It's got THC. It can be smoked. But what can be smoked? Yeah, we know we can get medicine from tobacco, isn't it? Nicotine can also be, some tobacco plants can be used for medicinal purposes. And all this information, people have been sitting on it. They didn't want to discuss it, for reasons best known to themselves. Dumping this plant together with opium, together with cocaine. All that has changed now. In the United States, it's being put into a group together with other products that can be found and you can buy them over the counter from a pharmacy. It's all politics.
Politics.
Yeah, it's all politics. But we should wake up. No, we should wake up because the plant grows so well in our environment. We don't have to spend so much money in building tunnels, in building, structures where you want to grow it and so forth. A lot of people are making money out of it because they're growing it for medicinal purposes only. But we're saying 25,000 applications.
When you speak about how it makes paper as well,
yes,
it also speaks to the issue that the environmentalists have been talking about for a long time when it comes to deforestation.
Exactly. Exactly. And guess who's producing the world's largest producer of hemp in the world? China. China. China is the world's largest hemp producer.
We're still on the hemp and environmentalists.
Yes, they can use it. Yeah, they can use it for phytoremediation, soil remediation, and improve the soil after it's been and not only that, hemp captures carbon dioxide, which is now spewing into the atmosphere
because
from
the
industry.
climate changed.
Yeah, exactly. It can be used to improve the environment because it captures carbon dioxide. So it is very important plant for climate change and carbon dioxide sequestration. I will put it that way. I don't want to use scientific terms. And so for environmentalists, they can run with that. And also, you mentioned earlier when we were talking about deforestation, because people want paper and all that. So there is a substitute.
It sounds like the best contender for that part because of trees take many years.
Exactly.
And then you have to cut it down and grow another
one after some time.
After some time. But this only takes a year.
A year.
Maximum.
Exactly. And all that is science that is coming out. Because people were not allowed to do anything about the plant. So they were. It's a plant. Cannabis sativa. That's what we're talking about. Yes.
And then there's cannabis indica.
There is cannabis indica, which is very funny in the sense that you see cannabis indica grows everywhere in India, and the Hindus uses cannabis. Hey, are they psychotic people in India? No. And given their population, they are going to surpass Chinese, Indians, right? And they use cannabis. So what was the fuss all about? You see what I mean? So we could go on and then also the other thing is that people may not appreciate, even around your homestead, there are what we call companion plants that can grow together with your cannabis around your house. You can grow it in your vegetable garden and because we don't know. Some of those plants, the ones that we're calling companion plants, could produce certain things that will protect your cannabis from being attacked by pesticides. That's what we're talking about, natural pesticides. Grow your cannabis around the house together with lavender, for example, or certain herbs, they can protect your plant. And so the same thing can be said about hemp. Grow certain things together with hemp that ripen at the same time as hemp and so forth. We call them companion plants. Companion plants. Friends of your cannabis. Yeah.
And also the cannabis also helps
the plants.
By attracting different plants.
Exactly. So, it's all that kind of information that's coming out now as a result of people working on it. And mind you, there are different varieties. There are different varieties of hemp. In Italy, there's a different type of variety that grows in the south of Italy from the one that grows in the north. So definitely there will be a different variety of a seed that can be cultivated outdoor in the Eastern Cape than those that can be cultivated in Limpopo province. And companies have gone into big business. They've worked on the genetics and say, well, okay, we've got a seed that allows the plant not to produce any THC. Well, that's what they claim. What are the advantages of planting a plant like a cannabis plant like that? Will it produce good fiber? Will it produce good seeds? So there is also
more oil
and so forth. Okay, so it's there's a lot that is not known, but people become so gullible and just rush. I'm going to, but this is kind of information I was saying to you earlier, that if there were clubs of people who are cultivating this stuff around their houses, cannabis plant that whose seed you got from somewhere, and all of a sudden it's become a tree. Yeah, not a tree aside, but it's become so huge.
Yes.
I've seen it. I've seen it in different people's places. Funny looking plants, and so forth. So it's big business. It's an industry that needs to be exploited, particularly in our environment. But it needs to be backed with science. Yeah, we need the science to back it up. Okay, we need science to back it up, and then develop our own local industries. A lot of people are worried. Let's cultivate it so that we have what people are calling off-take agreements. What? In other words, you establish some contacts in Europe who says, they cultivate this for us and you can send it over there for the, so they need some kind of an agreement and so forth. But I'm saying, no, they're using it for their own industry wherever they are. Why can't we cultivate this plant for our own local industry? Build houses from hempcrete.
Someone can say that maybe Europe is more developed in terms of industrial machinery.
Yes.
When it comes to processing.
Processing and so.
Yeah.
My question is, are they any different from us?
No.
Don't have the institution when people are being trained? Why can't we send people for training over there and learn? Why can't we have technology transfer? And things like that. So you see, that is where our problem. We don't think beyond. We just say, no, I've got an off-take agreement. Off-take agreement in a pharmaceutical company, for example, that wants your flower. But why can't we do it locally? That is our problem. That again, we're going into politics. That's our problem.
That's a major one.
That's a major one. That's a major one.
And it needs people at the top.
It doesn't need people at the top. It needs us to think.
But Prof, how do you think about creating the sort of processing industrial size machinery as an individual?
Yeah, but today there's TV. Today there's social media. Today there's Google. Oh, the information is there. The information is there. Why don't we use it? Why don't we use our brains and say, listen, this is what I would like to do. You go to a bank and you say, listen, this is the idea that I have. Can you support me? Can you invest me? Do we have people that have got money? And then you go to a place where they have got this machinery that you're talking about, and then go and study. There's nothing to stop us from doing that. So it's not people at the top. It's you and I, to think critically how we can get ourselves out of the poverty that we find ourselves in. Poverty, thinking.
And consumerism.
And exactly, and consumerism and so forth. Why can't you make a soap from hemp, which has been cultivated in Limpopo? You start from something that is so simple, right? And those people that you're selling that soap, ask them, are they happy with the product? And they will tell you, no, well, my skin gets dry and so forth after using it, whatnot. You improve upon it. And you continue. That's the way they've done it. Honestly. That is the way they've done it. And we can do it.
By experimenting.
By experimenting and thinking critically.
That's true.
No, honestly, we can't grow this plant and export it to Europe.
That's a good point.
Yes. We have universities that have got engineering department. We have TVETs, schools that have got vocational schools, and that, it can be done, honestly. If we are only serious as a people. And no one is going to take us serious until we take ourselves serious.
And it's very fascinating the fact that this one plant, will go from department to department in this university.
Yes.
Because it starts in agriculture.
It starts in agriculture.
And then it falls into psychology.
Exactly. It goes into medicine.
There's a lot.
It goes into economics, job creation, and so forth. That's the very same plant. When he said in his sauna, we want to create jobs, he meant it.
Yeah.
He really meant it. The question is, did we sit down to think, how can jobs be created? We have just pointed it out. A for agriculture, B for botany, A for agronomy, M for medicine,
E for economics.
E for economics.
Yeah, there's a lot.
T for timber, replaced by hemp. And we can go on, and all for oil. Hempcrete, substitute for bricks.
Dermatology.
You name it.
There's a lot. Like 25,000 users is a lot.
25,000 applications is a lot.
There's no way we can struggle to find it.
No.
There's no way.
There's no way. All containers in the house, in the house, somebody makes up. Remember what was this plastic container? And it was
Which one? Tupperware?
Tupperware, exactly. Replace Tupperware. Those people that are making Tupperware, replace it with plastic that is made from hemp. Okay. So it may sound easy, but it's not.
It's not.
It's not. It needs critical thinking, how it can be done. Yeah?
Very well, Prof. So, in conclusion, now that it is legal to some extent, to this extent, what do you think will happen in terms of the changes that will happen in the industry, or what can happen in the industry going forward? What can you expect?
A lot. Like, for example, let's assume you're growing it, you're cultivating it around your homestead. It's going to produce seeds. For example, it's going to produce seeds. Harvest those seeds and take them to someone who can extract oil from it. Okay? When they've extracted oil from it, let it be analyzed to see the quality of the oil. Okay? You have started from your own house, and you produced a lot of seeds because it says how many plants can one grow? 4, isn't it? The law, 4.
Somewhere around.
Somewhere around 4. You know, this year you grow 4, produces seeds, you keep them. Next, the following year, we're talking about in 9 months. 9 months, you have a bag full of seeds or a container full of seeds. You go and get the oil extracted from it. Surely, if you sit down on the oil, that's your problem. You get it, you have the oil. I mean, you know, no one can say, but where did you get it? You said, yeah, I got it from what I cultivated around my house. And I see this is the very, very good oil. And a company that needs oil from cannabis will then start making whatever that needs the oil. That's the beginning. Started from 4 plants. You harvested seeds. You analyzed the seeds. How much oil was in it? I mean, how much oil was in those seeds? What is the quality of the oil? And boom, you're in business.
You're in business.
You're in business. You get somebody who comes and say, okay, where did you grow it? They come and understand the soil that you grew your cannabis around your house. They do some further studies, some scientific studies and so forth. Next thing is they're cultivating it.
You're in business.
You're in business. Because, I mean, you know, that's in your, you can argue and say that's your intellectual property.
Yes.
That's your intellectual property. You go and sell it to an innovation, somebody who is innovative. That's how it starts. You don't have to, it doesn't start as something that's huge.
No.
Started from 4 plants.
Small.
4 plants somebody was growing. Okay? 4 plants from somebody who is talking about the effects. No, it probably contains your THC9. No, THC9, no, THCP.
The P.
The P, which is more potent than THC9. You talk about it and you're discussing it with someone. So listen, this is, you know, a long time ago when I used to smoke, you know, I never used to feel this way.
Yeah.
But this time, and somebody comes and studies your plant. And that's it.